Stories of the Nazgûl, number 3, Aglarâkhôr the Disciple. The King's Justice, Númenor's ancient law, teachings passed on from the days of Elros Half-Elven and the ravages of the War of Wrath. Covet not for power, yearn not west across the sea, give aid to those beneath you, and do not from duty flee. You lords among men, raised as kings above all, stray not from the woven path, be wary of temptation's call. Aglarâkhôr was in the closing years of his teens, right as Númenórean boys shed the innocence of their childhood, reaching for the sceptre of the kings of men. But it was already many years ago that the young lordling had taken to questioning Ilúvatar, hiding himself from prying eyes. His father had found him, reading dark texts by candlelight, and he was sent away. Raised among the law masters around the peak of Meneltarma, Aglarâkhôr endured harsh education, atonement for his sins. Secretly, he carried bitterness towards his father, the law masters, and all those who cheerfully hailed Ilúvatar's themes. He harnessed his resentment until finally he resolved to never again name the Valar in honor, and to free his people from the tyranny of their light, though he envisioned little mercy for those refusing to see the injustice of their overlords. Finally, reaching his coming of age on his 50th name day, Aglarâkhôr was released from the cloisters and libraries around the sacred mountain. But he never returned to the dwellings of his house. Travelling the Blessed Isle, he witnessed the burning of lawmasters of the dark, alchemists and sorcerers dabbling in matters which the Eldar would advise against. He saw heretics crucified on tall trees as their families were made to watch. For even though the Númenóreans fancied themselves elf friends, closer in kinship to the Eldar than to the men living under the sway of darkness in Middle-earth, mortal men they remained, being susceptible to the taint that Morgoth had laid upon the world. And to them, the judgments spoken in the halls of Mandos seemed an endless struggle, their meaning lost in men's eagerness to follow them. Both in the splendour of the priesthood and the royal line, as well as among the poverty of the common folk, there were the signs of corruption, made all too apparent by their hunt for those who spoke out against it. Aglarâkhôr met like-minded people in secret councils throughout Númenor's cities. In these meetings, he met him who would hold sway over his heart until the end of his days, chief herald to the hidden parties, sworn to the end of the rule of Valinor, Berokkar the Fair. His eyes were a golden shine, the stars kindled in his flowing hair, with face kind and garments fair. He spoke to Aglarâkhôr as to an old friend, hail and welcome. Berokkar's smile was a summer's eve, kind and warm, yet with a foreboding promise of indulgent reward and mischievous fun. Aglarâkhôr was awestruck, for Berokkar spoke words both kind and wise. Many had tales to tell, both more tragic and less than Aglarâkhôr, but when he told his fortunes, Berokkar took his hands, and sadness was in his kind eyes. Alas, that the cruelty of the Valar brings such fates to the men of this land, but here at least you are among friends. Then he embraced Aglarâkhôr, and Aglarâkhôr felt for the first time in many years love, born from compassion and kindness. Much anger was harboured by Aglarâkhôr and the other men of the council, but Berokkar spoke understanding and comfort to them all. Aglarâkhôr sat with him for long hours into the night, or walked in the gardens of the fair city of Armenelos, for here the presence of philosophers, sanctioned by the king, offered them some shelter from the strict judgments of Ilúvatar's law. Among Berokkar's secret society there was particularly much anger among those merchants and sailors who above all wanted free rein to go about their pursuits in Middle-earth, but whose business was impeded upon by the impractical moralities dictated by the lawmasters of Meneltarma. To them Berokkar spoke thus: Indeed, does Ilúvatar sanction little free will upon his subjects, yet while the mariners of the king still patrol the seas in the name of the elf lords, I counsel that you avoid the havens of the Eldar, and sail rather to the lands further south and east. Men are friendly there, and will welcome your trade more readily. Some of the council were indeed men of great power and standing among the noble house of Númenor, who found their policies influenced by elven messengers. plans and strategies were passed down from father to son under the supervision of elven counsellors sworn to the noble households, to serve ends who they themselves could not comprehend within the span of their lives. I worry for the future of my children and my children's children, for to what end the plans of the Eldar will bring them I cannot say. Is there no way to lengthen our time in this world, and so have a more equal say in these matters, that are a concern to us more than any others? To these folk, Berekar spoke again. Eru's gift to his firstborn is a fine one indeed, surely granted to them so that they can guide you, subtly executing their policies over the long years to keep their rule hidden from you. You are right to seek ways to broaden your perspective over the ages, for even now there are previous events that shaped the fate of the world that are kept secret from you. Much grief was there when the overlords of the West came across the sea and brought victory for their master at great cost, and the truth of what happened then is now known only to a few. But in this matter, above all, I counsel prudence, for the might of the Valar is a power that cannot be easily overcome. The secret of everlasting life is their most precious treasure, and in delving into these matters you are sure to awaken their ire. In those days, the royal court was an open forum, for Tar-Atanamir, king of Númenor, was a ruler both wise and radical, seeking ever to broaden the debate of his councils. The king invited to his court scholars and philosophers from all the lands of the world, and provided Berekar and his followers asylum to openly discuss the lore of the Valar. Great strife was there between Berekar's disciples and the lore-masters of Meneltama. Aglarâkhôr was ever at the forefront of this debate. Peace and love, reconciliation and justice, these, you say, are the chief values that the One would have us embrace. But by the deeds made in his name I know them little. If he loves us so, why will he have us prosecute each other so harshly in his name? Why does he meddle in the ways that we choose to embrace these values? And the lore-masters of Ilúvatar answered, We men are ever burdened by the temptations of our own hubris. Is it not then our duty to enforce his policies according to the circumstance that we live in? Ilúvatar's hand is a gentle one, and so it is left to us to live our lives by his virtue on our own accord. Even though we live on this blessed island near the never-dying lands beyond the sun, we still carry with us the taint of darkness. Why should we burden our benevolent Father with the judgments of our mistakes? Is it not right that we ourselves should take responsibility for our sins, our transgressions? That evening, Berekar took Aglarâkhôr aside. You are wise and far-seeing, he said. Indeed, one of the great leaders that will spread the truth about the oppression of the Valar across all the reaches of the land. But the men of this island are dogged, so entrenched in the teachings forced upon them that they would rather die than see reason. As such I bid you, be my chief emissary, and teach them to see how they have been misled. At this, Aglarâkhôr was dismayed, for he had seen the harsh prosecution that awaited those who spoke out against the Valar beyond the borders of the capital. He answered, I wish nothing more than to aid you in your quest, and to guide our people to be free to pursue their own destinies. But I do not know if I have the strength, for though our reasons are sound and just, Ilúvatar's subjects will not hear it. Then Berekar placed his hand upon Aglarâkhôr's face, and in that moment it was as if all doubt vanished, leaving only hope and prospect. Berekar said, I have come to know the strength of your will, and I know that it will never be broken as long as you hold true to your purpose. Yet if your spirit wavers, I will support you, holding you always in my heart, even as we are far apart. Berekar reached for his pocket. Holding his hand out, he produced for Aglarâkhôr a ring, forged in rich gold and set with a red jewel. To this end, I bid you take this token, he said, and if while wearing it you think of me, I will know it, and I will aid you in spirit. And when Aglarâkhôr put it on his finger, it was as if Berekar's hands rested upon his shoulders, whispering comfort gently in his ear, even as he rode out of Armenelos to rally the people of Númenor in opposition to the Valar. Long and hard was his labour, but Aglarâkhôr found himself shielded from weariness. Wherever he went he persuaded men to his reasoning. Lawmasters, soldiers, lords and peasants all heard his voice, and were enthralled by the promise of prosperity and greatness, free of the law of the Valar. Even questioning their ban, sailors urging to explore the seas far west of the coast. Yet as the years lengthened and the word spread, so too did the corruption that ever will be a part of the hearts of men. Even as the men of Númenor threw down their shackles and renounced the Valar, even so did they fall into deeds of greed and pettiness, and those who had not yet been convinced of their rebellion were hunted. Aglarâkhôr vanished from the island of Númenor. To where? None can say, but some say that he ventured with Berekar and still resides with him, aiding him in opposing the rule of the Lords of the West. This story was written by the Lord of All Hamsters. It is not a canonical story, and it has been written to give a backstory to the Nazgûl in Divide and Conquer. It has been narrated by me, Aglarâkhôr, and I hope you have enjoyed, and thank you.